I know what it feels like to be watched for the wrong reasons. You learn early which rooms are kind and which aren't. You learn the tone, the laugh that isn't really a laugh, the word said slow like a push. It started with names. Always names. Terrorist. Go back. Two brothers used that word like a dare. Jack and his shadow. They sat in the back of lecture halls with their feet up, whispering just loud enough. They wanted me to flinch, and when I didn't, they grinned like they'd still won. Everyone knew their parents were locked away for violence. That didn't stop them from wrapping me in their favorite rumor and shoving me down the hallway of it. It was messy. It was loud. It was sometimes quiet. The quiet was worse. Home was the opposite. A small, warm house in a suburb where the nights felt held by the dull orange glow of street lamps and the soft hum of a ceiling fan. My parents went to bed early. My mother liked to tuck blankets under my feet, as if warmth could fix the world. My father turned the deadbolts and tested the windows in a ritual that felt like a prayer. I did homework. I doom-scrolled. I found a way to make my breath smaller, my steps softer. The night this happened, the neighborhood was asleep. Midnight came and went, and left behind a stillness so deep I could hear the fan ticking, one tiny sound per rotation, like a metronome for dreams. My phone's light carved a blue window under my chin. I swiped without reading. My eyes stung. The world was soft at the edges. A whisper slid under the window. I didn't register it as anything real at first. The way you dream about your name being called and wake up certain the room said it. Then it came again. A breath shaped into sound, right against the glass. I set my phone down, sat up. The house held its breath with me. My parents' room down the hall was a warm, even hush. The whisper faded. 3 taps came after it, sharp, precise, knuckles, not branches. The temperature in my room didn't drop. I did. My stomach fell through me and landed somewhere in my knees. I told myself there was nothing outside but wet leaves and an old fence. We don't have a tree anywhere near that window, I thought, unhelpfully. I got up because something in me believed that if I looked, I could make it not true. The blinds pulled with a soft zipper sound. I opened them an inch and put my eye to the crack. A face pressed against the glass. It took my brain a second to make sense of it. White skin, but too white. A mouth too wide and painted into a grin that didn't reach anything like a muscle. Cheeks rouged to fever. Eyes. Wrong. Not eyes. Holes. Black glossy ovals that the streetlight couldn't fill. But behind those holes, someone looked back at me. Not the mask. The person wearing it. Breathing fog onto my window. Waiting. I stumbled back into my nightstand and it rattled, the lamp twitching in place. That's when I saw the second shape inside the frame of the open blinds. Taller. Shoulders sloped like a question. Also white face. Also painted smile. Head tilted as if listening for permission. I didn't need the masks to know. Something in the posture. The way the first one leaned toward my fear like it was heat he could bask in. Jack. And his brother. Different faces. Same energy. They'd found a way to turn the word they loved into something you could touch. The scream that came out of me was ugly. It had no shape or pitch, just pure alarm tearing right through my voice box. The first mask jerked back. I heard the scuff of shoes on grass, quick and panicked. My door burst open like a gust and my father filled the frame with his whole body, eyes wide, arms wide. My mother's hands landed on my shoulders, hot and trembling. I pointed. It was all I could do. He ripped the blinds up in one motion. The night outside blinked at us. The yard looked the same as always. Our fence. The neighbor's mower under a tarp. The streetlight pooling on the curb. Nothing. The air tasted like aluminum. My father moved fast. He grabbed the house phone so hard the charging base skittered. His voice into dispatch was steady in a way that made my chest hurt. Yes. Footsteps in the yard. Masks. 2. Come now, please. Those minutes were a different kind of long. My mother didn't let go of me, and I didn't let go of her. I stared at the window until I was sure my eyes were going to dry out and crack. Headlights washed the room in red and blue, and I almost cried again from relief. They took it seriously. Flashlights searched the yard. Beams chased over blades of grass and under the window where the warmth from my room bled into the night. One of the officers crouched, brushed a finger over a faint oval, then another. Prints, he said, shallow, 2 sizes. When they came inside to ask questions, I told them what I knew and what I felt. The knowing and the feeling moved together. How you can recognize a person without seeing their face, how a tilt of a head is a fingerprint, how cruelty has a posture. They talked to Jack and his brother the next day. Of course they did. You could see their house from the end of our street if you craned your neck. The brothers said they'd been at the library. They said they studied until closing. They said that without smirking, and I wanted to scream again. We heard quietly that there wasn't much the police could do. No damage, no entry, just footsteps and fear. We knew the fear was the point. They never looked at me after that. Not once. In the hallway, they'd glance past me like I was a glass door they weren't allowed to open. The laughter stopped. The whispering stopped. It should have been a relief. It didn't feel like one. Because fear doesn't end when the actors leave. It nests in the ordinary. It waits in the shape of a window and the soft sound of a ceiling fan. It lives in the way your father points his body at the door every night when he locks it, like a warning sign for whatever the dark wants to send. I replaced my blinds. I started sleeping with the curtain edges pinned shut with hair clips, because any sliver of light under there felt like an invitation. I moved my bed so the window wasn't at my shoulder. The fan stayed. Its tick-tick-tick was the only rhythm that made sense anymore. I learned to listen better than I ever had. To listen past my heartbeat, through it, into the night's small sounds. Sometimes, without warning, I hear those 3 taps in my memory. Not loud, not dramatic, precise, measured. Knuckles on glass, with no right to be there. On Halloween that year, our neighborhood filled with happy chaos. Children shrieked and ran in capes. Pumpkins grinned, houses glowed. A thing that should have made it worse, somehow made it better. Many masks, many faces. Everyone allowed to be different for one night without anyone turning it into a weapon. Still, when I turned off my porch light, I stood for a long time in my room and looked at my window. The street outside was calm. Leaves scraped the sidewalk. My reflection sat on the glass for a second as if I were the one looking in instead of out. The police never proved anything. That was expected. It didn't matter to me. Proof is a luxury when you live with the kind of fear that leaves fear. 8 years in, 6 months out. That's how I counted my life back then. 8 years of sand and heat shimmer and engines thumping the night into a steady heartbeat. 6 months of a silence that wasn't silent at all. Every room buzzing, every shadow loud. I wanted the woods. I wanted a place where the sound my body made could disappear into bigger sounds. So I went alone. A remote stretch near Shenandoah, the kind of trail that makes you understand the country's size, not on a map, but in your legs. Early June. Sky like clean glass, mid-70s. I locked my truck by a trailhead off Skyline Drive and started walking. The ground gave under me. Pine needles, dirt, hidden rocks like teeth. The air smelled alive, green and warm and full of sap, with that sweet sourness you get near streams where the water chews at the banks. Birds chatted, squirrels rattled branches. My pack creaked. I let that rhythm reset my breathing. By noon, I'd made good time. 8 miles of letting my thoughts untangle, then tie themselves into new knots. I stopped by a stream, knelt, dipped my hands into water that felt pulled straight from snow. It hurt. It woke me. I took a drink, splashed my face, closed my eyes. Leaves whispered up trail. It didn't register as a threat right away. My brain filed it under wildlife. Normal. Wind. When I stood and shouldered my pack, the whisper thickened into footsteps. Soft. Unmistakable. Someone walking where I just walked, maybe 100 yards back. I turned, ready to nod at a hiker and say, "How's it going?" Nobody. Just the trail curving gently away, and the trees crowding close like they were remembering something. It's an awful thing to be good at hearing what others miss. Training rewires you. Your system knows what a person sounds like when they're trying not to be heard. And this was that. I moved. The steps behind me moved. I slowed a touch. The steps behind me got lighter. I stopped altogether. They stopped. "Hello," I said, loud, friendly even. "You need anything?" No answer. Wind. A bee lifting out of a purple flower and disappearing into the bright. I kept going. The light got warm and heavy. The trail narrowed. Ferns pressed in and painted my calves damp. Every few minutes I'd hear the steps again. Small corrections to match my pace. A mirror on the ground. The hairs along my forearms stood up like tiny antennas. Afternoon did that thing it does in the woods, where it begins to feel like evening long before it is. Shadows stretched, as if someone pulled them from both ends. The canopy thickened. My imagination tried on a dozen ideas for what those sounds were. Deer, black bear, a hunter, a kid messing around. Each made sense until it didn't. Animals don't match your cadence. Hunters don't advertise. I stopped at 3 and faced the hush behind me. "If you're out there," I said, voice flat, "I see you." Nothing. But the silence now had a shape. It had an edge. I walked faster. 30 minutes of focused movement. My boot lace slapped against my ankle where it had loosened. I didn't stop to fix it. The rustling started off to my right in the brush, parallel, thick, intent. I cut my eyes without slowing. Ferns trembled at knee height. A dark curve of something, fabric, bark, broke the pattern and slid away. I wanted it to be a deer so badly my chest hurt around the wish. "Come on," I said, to myself, to the woods, to whatever was out there. Not today. The left side joined in, crunching leaves and twigs. That's when adrenaline switched from background hum to bright flood. 2 sounds. 2 tracks keeping even with me, flanking, herding. A tactic older than language. Everything I've ever trained for lives in that inch between thinking and doing. I ran. The pack slammed into my shoulder blades. The trail blurred into root, rock, dust. I ate air in shallow bites, tasting old dry leaves in my own panic. Sweat slicked my spine. The rustle held pace, never closer, never farther. Always there. Tried to trick it. I stopped dead and leaped off the trail into the brush, crouched behind a deadfall, and listened so hard it hurt my ears. For a second there was only my heartbeat. Then, softly, the footfalls walked to where I should have been if I had kept walking. They stood there. The sense of someone standing. It's a presence you feel in your teeth. Then they moved again, slow, searching. I backed away until twigs chewed at my pant legs and my hands stung from grabbing branches. Then I broke back onto the path and sprinted for the road. The sky started to lose its color when I hit the dirt turnout near the cabin I'd rented. I could see the metal line of my truck through the trees. The cabin sat small and square in a patch of sun that failed to feel warm. I fumbled the key, got inside, slammed the door, threw the deadbolt, felt the metal seat in the strike plate with a thunk that felt like a new kind of prayer. It smelled like wood and dust. The TV fought for a satellite signal and spit out a sitcom laugh, like it had never been outside. I stood with my back pressed to the door until my breathing slowed. My rifle waited in the corner where I'd left it that morning. I picked it up. The cold weight made my hand stop shaking. I loaded it with the muscle memory you can perform in your sleep. Again, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Also, let us know where and when you're watching this. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. I used to love the sound of rain. Real rain. The kind that blankets a neighborhood until the streetlights smear into long orange streaks and the world goes soft at the edges. That night cured me of it. Seattle, late November. They'd been calling it an atmospheric river all week, like the sky pointed a fire hose at the city and forgot to turn it off. By nightfall, the gutters outside my place in Ballard were overflowing. The maple out front whipped like it wanted to tear itself out of the ground. Inside, the house felt sealed and small, warm. A kettle hissed. My phone sat on its charger. A true crime podcast murmured from the counter, low enough that I had to lean in to catch it. Perfect night to stay put, lock the doors, ignore the world. At 9:32 p.m., my front door jumped in its frame, not a knock. A blunt, meaty impact that shivered up the hinges and rattled the peephole. I froze halfway to sipping my tea. The second hit came with a squeal, metal on metal, as if a wet hand slid over the lever. Instinct took over. I tapped off the podcast, set the mug down, and walked to the foyer in my socks. Every step felt too loud. My breath felt too loud. I looked through the peephole. Rain. A solid sheet of it draining off the porch roof, turning the world outside into a watercolor. My porch light hummed and swam with water. A man stood at the top step, soaked through, jacket plastered to his shoulders like a second skin. Dark hair, darker eyes, no hat, no umbrella. His chest rose and fell in hard pulls like he'd been running. He kept flicking his gaze to the street, like he was tracking something only he could see. He leaned in. His face ballooned in the peephole's fisheye. "My phone died," he said, loud enough to carry through wood and weather. "I need to charge. I'm freezing out here." I have a good door, solid core. New strike plate I welded into the frame myself after a rash of car prowls the year before. Quick-set deadbolt. And a camera pointed straight down the steps. Those facts lined up in my head like a checklist. I kept the deadbolt engaged. "I can call someone for you," I said, even. "Give me a number. I'll make the call." His eyes changed. It was subtle, but I felt it like a temperature shift. The pleading softened out of them. He blinked once, slow. Then his hand slid down and curled around the lever like it belonged to him. He pushed. The door flexed in its hinges with that throaty wooden groan old houses make when they're tested. The deadbolt held. My heartbeat went from quick to frantic. "Don't do that," I said, calm as I could. "I'm calling 911. He leaned so close to the peephole that for one horrible second, it felt like we were almost touching. His breath fogged the glass. I stepped back, grabbed my phone from the little entry table, and dialed. Hands suddenly useless, thumbs clumsy. The dispatcher answered with that clipped professional calm that makes you want to cry from relief. "There's a man at my door. I'm in Ballard. He's trying the handle. He's soaked, dark jacket, mid-30s, no umbrella." She took it all down. "Stay inside. Keep the door locked. I'll stay on the line. Units are on their way." He stopped moving the lever. For a heartbeat, I thought it would end there. He'd back away, apologize, walk off into the rain. He stepped out of the peephole's field of view instead. I opened my camera app. The feed popped up with a wash of static and rain noise. He stood at the far edge of my porch, turned toward my side yard, rain running off his jaw. He lifted the empty Amazon box sitting by my door like a shield, angled his body to the storm, and stared into the dark gap between my house and the neighbor's fence. "I have a backyard," I whispered to the dispatcher. "There's a gate. I think he's—" The gate latch clicked. Could feel it through the bones of the house. The gate had that steely scrape that makes your teeth itch. He jostled it, angled it, pushed. The storm threw a handful of hail against the kitchen window. I moved fast. Back door, locked. Check it anyway. Twist the deadbolt even though it's already horizontal. Slider, dowel in the track. Push it down to be sure. Kitchen motion light, on. The fixture buzzed and spilled cold white light across the deck, wet boards shining like seals. Through the blinds, a shape passed. Tall. Intent. "He's in my yard," I said. He got the gate open. "Officers are en route," the dispatcher said. "Stay where you are." He came to the glass. He cupped his hands, peering in like he owned the view. The glass fogged around his forehead. His jacket dripped a steady rhythm onto my deck. Tick, tick, tick. He went to the handle, lifted it, rattled it. Tried that trick where you lift and pull to pop a poorly installed slider. The dowel held. He pressed his ear to the glass, as if he could hear where the lock sat by the vibration. I heard my neighbor's text before I saw it. 2 quick vibrations in my palm. Megan across the street. "Are you okay? There's a guy on your porch." I texted back without looking away from the kitchen blinds. "He's in my backyard." "I've called 911. She responded. "We're watching. We're calling too." The lights flickered. Every appliance went dark, then gave a sad little beep as the power returned. I swallowed hard and moved to the hallway, where I could see the front door and the glow bleeding from the kitchen. I tucked myself against the wall, phone to my ear, shoulder pressed to the cold plaster. My own breath sounded too loud. My pulse felt like it was trying to kick a hole in my ribs. Footsteps moved along the side of the house again. Then the porch boards sighed, that weather-worn creak I'd learned by heart. He was back at the front. This time he didn't test the handle first. He punched the door hard. Twice. The hollow reverberation rolled through the house. I pushed the tiny entry table against the door, even though I knew it was theater. Fear demands props, and any barrier feels like something. The lever screamed in his grip. Metal, wet hand, force. "Leave," I said, voice very steady for a person who could barely feel their hands. "Police are on the way." He leaned into the peephole again. I saw one eye. Brown. Unmoving. Rain ran in vertical strands down his cheek, caught by the porch light into silver threads. He smiled without showing teeth. The kind of smile that says there's no reason for this, except that he decided. "Open up," he said, low, certain. "I saw you." It is a specific terror to be witnessed in your own home. To realize the thing you've installed to keep your eye on the world can become a way for the world to look back. Down the block, a car alarm chirped twice. Then it went off, full blast. Siren screaming. The sound tore through the rain and cut the night open. His head snapped to the side, listening. He froze there a beat, then dropped the box he'd been using as a shield and ran, slapped down the steps, into the street, gone. The camera caught his shape until the rain devoured it completely. "He left," I said to the dispatcher, trembling now that the immediate threat had moved. He ran. "Please stay inside," she said. "Officers are arriving." Minutes stretched like something elastic and thin. My house groaned in the weather, every sound a threat. The maple's branches raked the siding, and I jumped so hard I knocked the little bowl of keys to the floor. They clattered like tin cans tied to a bumper. I stood there, breathing shallow, staring at the peephole, replaying his voice over and over like a fault line in my head. Lights finally painted white and blue arcs across the wet asphalt. 2 officers trudged up my stairs with their collars turned up and their hats pulled low. The world looked small and tunnel-shaped through my door chain, I checked their uniforms on my camera feed like I always said I would if I ever had to. Then I slid the chain and opened the door. They smelled like wet wool and coffee. They asked the questions in order: time, height, words, movement. I showed them the clips, the porch, the gate. The face turned into a fisheye smear by the peephole. One of them walked my backyard with a flashlight, the beam catching in the rain. He came back with mud in the treads of his boots and said there were prints by the slider and a fresh scrape where someone had tried to lift the door. I asked if this was happening anywhere else tonight. He nodded once. Finney, Greenwood, same storm, same request. Let me in so I can charge my phone. Same shift the second you offer to call instead. Same hands on the handle. Same gate. He handed me a card with a case number and told me to keep everything locked and the porch light on. Nights like this, he said, people think there are fewer eyes. After they left, the house didn't feel like mine for a while. My tea was cold. The podcast app still sat open like a window I was too afraid to close. I checked every lock twice. I set the dowel in the slider and pushed down with my whole body until it bit into the track. I closed the tiny slider on the peephole because seeing where his eye had been, made my stomach flip. I didn't sleep. I watched the wall until my eyes burned. At 3:07 a.m., when the rain finally thinned to a soft hiss, I drifted on the couch in a patch of streetlight, mouth dry, heart in a slow roll. My phone vibrated so gently it almost didn't register. A notification. Motion detected at your front door. I sat up too fast, and the room tilted. I thumbed the screen with hands that didn't feel like mine. The feed opened on a wall of static and rain mist, silent, monochrome, until a figure shaped out of the noise. It wasn't him. It was my maple tree. A big limb had split under the weight of the water and hung like a broken arm in the camera's field of view, swinging. The light strobed over wet leaves. My heartbeat slowly walked down off the cliff. When the sun rose, the storm had wrung itself out. The street glowed clean. The maple dripped like it was sweating. On my porch, where that empty box had been, there was a wet oval, the imprint of something dropped and left in the night. It could have been nothing. It could have been everything. Every time it rains hard now, I feel the door flex in its hinges even when it isn't moving. I think of that eye in the peephole, the way he said I saw you like ownership, and I do what I swore I wouldn't do. I leave the porch light on, because on some nights the dark isn't your friend. It's theirs.